3 years ago, I stood outside our apartment doorway and heard Sienna's heels scuffing the wooden floor as she walked out. I felt like I was being shot in the chest, but she didn't budge an inch. Instead, she tossed her hair and claimed that I was too little, too safe for her. She believed I would be able to handle the divorce papers that arrived a week later, but I still remember the pain of her words. She thought she was trading up when she married the man with the laptop and the ill-fated business idea. I, on the other hand, would remain the poor dreamer. That night, I stayed awake, glued to the kitchen table, staring at the wall, letting the weight of her departure sink in. Deep within me, something else stirred. A ravenous desire, a refusal to break, so I built. Not with bricks or steel, but with every ounce of pain she left behind. The next morning, I worked 8-hour days, grinding away at what I called Wolf's strategic capital. The name? It had to sound fierce, like the man I was determined to become. Fueled by coffee and anger, I shaped my modest investment idea into something real. I told no one. Not my parents, not my old college friends. I just kept my head down, making calls, shaking hands, signing deals. Meanwhile, Sienna wasted no time. She married Grant Ellison, a loudmouth property developer with a trust fund and a grin that screamed money. I saw their wedding photos online. She wore white. He wore an ostentatious suit. They laughed like they'd won the jackpot. She thought she had left me in the dust. I didn't care. I was too busy stacking wins she'd never see coming. It took 3 years, but I did it. Wolf's strategic capital grew into a $200 billion empire. Real estate, tech, private equity. No magazine covers. No extravagant parties. Just quiet moves, the kind that shaped the world without making a sound. I hired Brielle Carson as my CEO, sharp, loyal, the kind of woman who'd run through a wall for me. Miles Thorne came on board, too, a shark in a suit, my legal fixer. Together, we built an empire. And Sienna? She had no idea. Neither did Grant. Neither did anyone. I liked it that way, watching from the shadows, knowing I wasn't the same man she left. I heard murmurs about her life with Grant. Luxury cars, mansions, everything she'd always wanted. She thought she'd escaped me. She thought she had traded up. But with every late night, every deal, every zero added to my balance sheet, I proved her wrong. I wasn't chasing her anymore. I was waiting for the day she realized what she'd thrown away. And that day was closer than I thought. Dramatic pause. I don't talk much about how Wolf's strategic capital became what it is today. I don't like the spotlight. 3 years ago, when Sienna walked out, I decided to go silent. Not just with her, but with everyone. No interviews, no grand statements. Just me, my laptop, and the fire in my gut that wouldn't quit. I worked in a tiny rented office with bad lighting and big dreams. Real estate deals, tech startups, private equity to tie it all. Together, no sleep, no weekends, just the grind. Then Brielle joined. She saw something in me I hadn't even seen in myself. "You've got vision, Adrian," she said over a cheap coffee. "Let me help you make it real." And she did. She ran operations, kept the chaos in check while I chased the big ideas. Then came Miles, my legal fixer. Quiet until you needed him. Then he was a bulldog in a suit. The three of us turned Wolf Strategic into a machine. Quiet, precise, unstoppable. By last year, we were sitting on $200 billion in assets. I still can't say that number out loud without feeling a little dizzy. But the real reward? Project Haugen, a $30 billion luxury real estate venture. New York, London, Dubai, skyscrapers with my name on them. The catch? We needed a listing partner, a brokerage to handle the real estate side. Top tier only, I told Brielle. I don't care who, just make it work. She nodded and got to work. I trusted her. I didn't ask questions. And Sienna's name never once crossed my mind. Not until that day. The day I walked into the open house. Dramatic beat. I wasn't even supposed to go. It was just a property we bought through a shell corporation, one of our test locations. Brielle had suggested I check out the brokerage, so I did. No suit, no tie, just jeans and an old jacket. I walked in unnoticed. Then I saw her, Sienna, standing by the kitchen counter, clipboard in hand. She looked polished, professional. She had no idea. And beside her, Grant, loud, flashy, still acting like he owned the place. I stood there, unseen, and then he noticed me. "You must be the cleaner," Grant laughed, loud enough for everyone to hear. A few agents chuckled, unsure. Sienna froze. And in that moment, I made a decision. I took a slow step forward, and then I said it. "Then our $30 billion deal is off." The room went silent. Phones slipped from hands. Sienna's clipboard stalled mid-air. Grant's face lost all color. "You should have checked who you were mocking," I added, my voice cold as steel. Then I turned, boots scuffing the floor, leaving them standing there, stunned. Behind me, Grant stammered. "Wait, what?" I didn't pause. I didn't need to. The elevator. Doors slid shut, and I leaned against the wall. For the first time in 3 years, I exhaled. I stepped out into the city streets. Phone buzzing, Brielle, no doubt. But I let it sit. I just dropped a storm on them. And this was only the beginning. Texted me before I'd even finished my first cup. Grom. Mass check. X. I opened the app, scanning through the carnage. Photographs of him were everywhere. One hazy shot showed him yelling on his phone in a parking lot, his tie pulled off, his face red. "Ellison's done for," someone wrote. "Lost my contract because of this moron." Another post tagged me. "Well, Wolf's strategic statement. Whomever this guy is, he's a legend. Knocked down Ellison with one line." I smirked, sipping my coffee. I didn't feel like a legend. I felt like a person who'd finally quit taking punches. But the buzz kept building. Investors bailing, agents jumping ship, accusations circulating that the SEC was sniffing around Grant's books. His world was falling apart. Fast. Sienna did something desperate that afternoon. I was at the office, going over Housey and updates with Miles when Tara buzzed me. "There's a woman downstairs," she said, her voice tight. "Says she knows you. Won't leave." I didn't need to ask who. I moved to the window, staring down at the street. There she was. Sienna stood by the entryway, arms crossed, her coat pulled tight against the wind. No expensive blazer today, just jeans and a sweatshirt like she'd given up the act. "She's been there an hour," Tara added. I observed her for a minute, pacing back and forth, staring up at the building. "Let her stay," I said, turning away. "She's not coming up." Tara nodded, and that was that. Sienna could wait all day. I wasn't opening the door. The news kept piling on. By noon, Grant's firm had lost 3 additional investors, large guys who'd propped up his flamboyant transactions. Miles stepped in with a stack of papers, grinning like a kid on Christmas. "They're toast, Adrian," he said, dumping the files on my desk. "Ellison's board is panicked. News is they're voting to cut him loose." I leaned back, staring at the ceiling. "All I asked?" "Sure," he answered. "And get this, folks are stating Wolf Strategic is blacklisting everybody who works with him. No proof, but the rumor is enough. No one wants to touch him now." I didn't start that story, but I didn't mind it. Let people think I was merciless. It kept the vultures away. I did one interview that day just to set the record straight. Some business reporter caught me outside a lunch meeting, throwing a mic in my face. "Mr. Wolf, why'd you pull the $30 billion deal?" he asked. I kept it simple, staring straight at him. "I believe in partnerships built on respect," I said. "That's all I'll say." He blinked, scribbling it down, and I hurried off before he could shove in another question. It aired an hour later, and Brielle texted me a clip. "Smooth, boss. You're trending again." I watched it once. Me in a basic jacket, voice steady, the city buzzing behind me. It wasn't much, but it was enough. People didn't need my life narrative. They simply wanted to know I meant what I stated. By evening, Grant was a ghost online. His socials shut, his name dragged through every comment section. Sienna was still. Outside, as I left the office, sitting on a bench with her head in her hands. I paused by my truck, observing her from across the street. She seemed small, lost, nothing like the woman who'd walked out on me 3 years ago. Part of me wanted to go over to ask why she was here, what she thought she'd get. But I didn't. I stepped into the truck and drove off, her form shrinking in the rearview mirror. She'd made her choice back then. This was mine now. The city, lights blurred past, and I felt the weight of it. The collapse I'd ignited, the power I wielded. Grant and Sienna were sinking, and I was still standing. That's all that mattered. I didn't expect to see Grant again so soon. Yet there he was, storming a charity gala I'd quietly sponsored that Saturday night.